Hey everybody, Optimus Tom here with a Pioneer deck tech. This time it's going to be Orzhov Greasefang, a twist on the Abzan combo style that La 1-1 took to a 5th place finish at a recent Pioneer challenge. This deck is a bit of a mid-range version and foregoes some of the classic Greasefang cards for a bit more of a stable game plan that isn't necessarily hated out as much by your opponent's sideboards after game 1. Now, the big boon to running the Orzhov version over the Abzan version is you're not hated out by any sort of graveyard hate right now. We have Izzet Phoenix and Amalia, which are two of the top dogs in the format right now as far as decks go that care about their graveyards. Phoenix bringing the titular card back, and Amalia having returned to the ranks as a way to kind of reset after board wipes or after spot removal, removing pieces of their combo. Greasefang, of course, is normally a graveyard synergy deck and gets hated out by things like Rest in Peace and Tormod's Crypt all of the time. But this time around, since you're playing more to the board and a bit more of a grindy strategy, you're not as affected by those, and you're actually able to run some of those opposing hate pieces in your own sideboard. You also are not playing as many 2-drop permanents. There's no, or 2-drop or less technically. There's no Vessel of Nascency. You're not wearing Scrapwork Mutts. You still have some Raffine's Informants in your deck, but you're not necessarily as hard hit by Temporary Lockdown, whereas the Abzan Amalia decks, like everything in their deck is 2 mana or less, so they're just getting absolutely decimated by that card. And you get to play it too. So the downside to this deck, though, is that you're not running that turn 3 or turn 4 kind of kill combination. There's no Parhelions in sight in Law's list whatsoever, so you don't have that angel swinging in the sky for potentially 18 damage or something, 13 damage from the angels and the Parhelion with any extra sort of creatures on the battlefield beforehand. You trade in that speed for some consistency. What you're trading it in for, let's take a look. Greasefang, of course, is in the deck. It is the namesake of the deck and a very powerful creature in and of itself. 4 power as 3 mana, still pretty value. But this time around, you're not really going to be reanimating Parhelions. You're going to be reanimating Sky Sovereign. That's still here in the deck, in addition to Reckoner, Bank Buster. So this is your fair, grindy kind of card. It's still 4 power with Greasefang, so you don't really care so much that if you trade it off, because it's the same as if you were attacking with Greasefang. You potentially get some extra use out of it by making a pilot and a treasure token, and if the board state is stalled, you can just reanimate it with Greasefang, use it to draw a card instead of having to attack with it, and then it goes back to your hand so you can replay it and draw another card. So very powerful kind of card advantage engine that you get to use to draw through this deck. You also still have Raffine's Informant, so you can discard cards, but you don't have any self-mill in this deck. So you instead are running Bitter Triumph, which is a primo removal spell for decks like Greasefang because they don't really care if they're going to be discarding a card. They don't want to lose the life, and the discard is a boon for the deck. So you get to drop all your vehicles in the graveyard while removing opposing Shieldrids. It sounds like a pretty solid rate to me. We still have the cheeky little thing of Thought Seizing yourself to put a Sky Sovereign in the graveyard, or a Reckoner Bankbuster to reanimate with Greasefang. But it's mostly going to be there to disrupt your opponents in your grindy sort of games. You still have a suite of removal package as well. The Bitter Triumphs, of course, are met with Fatal Push. In addition to that, we also get access to Vanishing Verse in the Orzhov version, which some of the Abzan versions were playing around with, but it's a way to just deal with any of these mono green decks. It's a way to deal with opposing Shieldrids. It's a way to deal with some mono red threats as well. I know that they're going all the way up to 4 mana now with Ohirax O'Neill, Rampaging Ferocidon as well. So just being able to get rid of some of those mono colored threats in the Pioneer format. And of course, the big upside to going to a more mid-range plan is the fact that you get to play all the Shieldrids that you want. In fact, you get to play 4 copies of Shieldred in this deck, so it's not exactly a cheap one to pivot to if you haven't been playing Rakdos or something like that beforehand. But Shieldred is going to be your main win con or backup plan, even if you have Greasefang not being able to mill things away, or if you do run into one of those matchups that has some graveyard hate and you just don't want to deal with it. Of course, you also have the Wandering Emperor, which is a kind of different take on the go wide angle. Abzan, of course, has access to a Seeker's Chariot, which is one of the best reasons to run the Abzan version, is just that go wide angle that the Chariot gives you. Wandering Emperor is going to be your replacement here. You can, of course, use it as a flash removal spell on something that's attacking you and just kind of do the little gotcha out of nowhere, but then you just start creating tokens on the board and you get that same kind of go wide presence that the Chariot gives you in the Abzan version. Law's deck also has a singleton copy of Graveyard Trespasser. I don't hate it. I think Preacher of the Schism is something you could look at as well, but Graveyard Trespasser has a place in this meta because, of course, all the graveyard decks. So you're going to be potentially be removing Phoenixes with this Graveyard Trespasser. You're going to be removing Amalias that you kill with Bitter Triumph. Just ways to keep you grinding out and getting rid of potential combo win combinations from these creature-based combo decks you might encounter in Pioneer. The sideboard gives you access to a lot of different things because you're not going to be caring so much about your graveyard anymore. So you actually get to run 2 copies of Rest in Peace to house Phoenix and opposing Greasefang decks if they're the Abzan colors. You also get this against Amalia decks, so Return to Ranks is completely turned off, and you don't have to run Leyline of the Void, which is a dead card outside of your opener. Now you get to run the 2-mana version of it, which just completely shuts off those decks before sometimes they even have Spell Pierce available. You also get to run Temporary Lockdown because you don't have as many 2-mana or less permanents in your deck. A lot of your threats are 3. Sure, you may be able to get rid of your Reckoner Bankbusters, but you can play around so you don't Temporary Lockdown with one of those on the battlefield and instead reanimate it with Greasefang, have it bounce back to your hand, and then Temporary Lockdown kind of style. You also have access to Wedding Announcement. The Abzan versions were playing this for a little while to deal with Rakdos decks and decks that kind of play to the board. This helps with your go wide angle if your graveyard angle has been shut off and you don't have to only rely on your Sheoldreds. Redain, God of the Worthy, is a nice tool that you don't usually have the slots for in Abzan because you're too busy playing removal spells like Abrupt Decay or Assassin's Trophy. Redain is now something you can do to hate out against combo decks and just be a taxing effect on your opponents, which is very annoying. And then the flip side of Redain is also something that is extremely, extremely powerful against the Rakdos Sacrifice decks. You get access to 3 more copies of Duress in the sideboard in addition to 1 in the main deck. You have Go Blank, which is great against combo and control decks, as well as just an additional angle of graveyard hate. And then Dark Betrayal is going to be a singleton silver bullet to kill opposing Sheoldreds or Archfiends of the Dross, just anything that's black in the format that's very powerful. Amalia is an Orzhov card, so Dark Betrayal gets rid of Amalia as well for just 1 mana. So that's what the Orzhov Greasefang deck brings to the table. It's a bit grindier, a bit slower, and it doesn't kill out of nowhere like the Abzan Greasefang version does, but slow and steady sometimes is all you need to win the race in Pioneer. If you like deck techs like this, check out more of them over on my YouTube channel at OptimusTomTV. I have some shorter videos as well on my TikTok, so follow me there, and on Twitter at OptimusTomTV as well. And then also keep up to date with everything I'm posting on Reddit. My name's Optimus Tom over there, and I'm happy to have conversations with everybody, discuss the decks you've been working on, and then just offer my advice as well. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next deck tech.